Hello and welcome to episode 133 of Spatial Realities, your podcast for all professionals involved in XR, spatial computing and the metaverse. My name is Thomas Riedel, host of the podcast and tech journalist from Cologne, Germany. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host Thomas Bedenk, one of the most experienced XR experts in Berlin. Greetings.
Hi Thomas, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Are you excited about the upcoming VR headset releases like the new Pico Meta glasses, like the Steam Frame? It's so amazing what's going on in VR, isn't it?
Oh, we have a lot of headsets coming up in late summer and fall, so let's see how they turn out. I got to try the Steam Frame. That was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. It's very light, works really well, pretty comfortable. Mm-hmm. And the Aura, X-Rail Aura, I also got to try.
Yeah, you have been at the XRCC hackathon.
Mm-hmm.
How was it?
Nice event. I felt like the hackathon, because of how it was organized, just spatially in the rooms, it felt a little bit locked away during the day. Like they were all in their rooms rather than a bigger space. So that was different.
Because there was a conference in the bigger room?
It was mostly, at least that was my impression, that the hackathon participants had their own rooms. So even the jury and the mentors told me that they kind of felt like intruders talking to them, right? So often hackathons are more in an open space, right? But I wasn't really participating in the hackathon part as much, so I think we would have to ask other people about the impressions. Yeah. It seemed like it worked out well again. The conference was also nice, great program, and it was just, as usual, a good place to meet. They were trying to push more towards, also industry participants and other communities joining. Mm-hmm. And I think that was only half successful. It was still mostly the XR people meeting there.
Cool, but good to hear. XRCC was, from the hackathon side at least, a success again. I mean, I saw a couple of posts on LinkedIn, looked everything very nice. And some people got prizes, were very happy about that. So, I mean, what do you want from hackathon? That's great. We are at our last episode before the holidays here in Germany. So what we do in this episode is summarize everything which needs to be said before the holidays. And then we're going to do the big roundup and start fresh after the holidays. I guess after Gamescom also, which is end of August. But there will be a couple of episodes specialized on certain topics. So you can expect some very specialized episodes in the next weeks. You will be in the US,
a family
being pulled over by the police and
family vacation. We're flying into New York and then somehow do a road trip through Pennsylvania towards Arkansas. So it will be interesting to see.
Very nice.
Lots of driving. So.
Yeah, maybe don't drive through Illinois if you're wearing your Meta Ray-Bans. We're going to have a story about that in this episode. We're talking a little bit about VR. That's why I asked, because something is happening there. It seems Josef Erl has some theories here, and that's very interesting. I think we should discuss that. There are a couple of very interesting stories about Meta smart glasses strategy we have to talk about, like, doing 7 things at the same time, which are contradictory. Very interesting. And of course, we have to talk about even realities becoming a unicorn and having its own strategy concerning AI glasses. And then we will talk about the metaverse browser. What is that? You might ask yourself. Something is in development here, and we have to cover that. And then something funny at the end. UBTECH is releasing a very human-looking, clumsy robot, which is just there to be there and be your companion. And we have to talk about that. It's very funny. And this is then the end. All right. I have a lot of topics to cover today. And we just hop in, I think, with the VR topic. We haven't talked about top VR for a long time, or way less than we did when the podcast started because of all the AI glasses things going on. Josef made a very good article on Heisedy. It's, of course, linked in the show notes, as well as he posted it in the newsletter. And he was looking at all the new releases and were thinking about what is actually happening in the VR industry right now. And he has a theory which says there will not be the one-size-fits-all VR goggles anymore, but more 4 new categories which we can talk about. Like brilliant picture, but only for enthusiasts, like standalone and streaming with gaming focus, but not so great displays, like the steep frame. Productivity, media consumption without gaming is maybe Pico and Meta, and compact glasses like the X-Real Aura or maybe also the Snap Specs. So yeah, you've also read the newsletter. What do you think about the theory? What came first into your mind when you read that, Thomas?
Honestly, I think it's always been like that. I don't think there was the catch-all headset, and I also don't think that the new ones are less catch-all than the earlier ones. You know, like I think we see a diversification in a sense that they are trying to serve to specific audiences with their headsets. But I feel like we had that before as well, you know, like some headsets more towards arcades, some to gamers. Like the Index was clearly similar position to the Steam Frame. And then we had more pro user headsets like Vayu ones. So I don't think that's necessarily a new thing. Some more PC focused, some more simulation focused, and so on and so on. But I still think it's interesting how he differentiates the different target groups, because the devices are accepting more compromises, and maybe that's what he means in a sense that, for example, the Steam Frame is focused on gaming, has a different kind of controller and no hand tracking. So it's a specific kind of gaming, because the matter, like 50% of the games on there, you can play with hand controls. Some you can only play with hand controls, and it's still gaming. So it's just a different kind of subgroup of gaming focus, more around Steam and PC focused VR.
Not so much simulation, for example.
Yeah, and also the Steam Frames, they don't have like proper path through. They also have like a bluish tinted low resolution monochrome pass through, which reminds you a little bit of Quest 2, but with a different kind of quality to it. So clearly the headset has a specific focus. I'm not sure if that makes it better for a wider audience necessarily. And we've discussed this multiple times with the Steam Frame. I don't think this is anything that will give us the next leap or the next, audience adoption. But it's a great follow-up for the core audience of Steam users. But then again, if it ends up over 1,000, which is very likely with all the prices rising, then you still have to ask yourself, why would you have this rather than a Quest 3? Or why would you upgrade from a Quest 3 to a Steam Frame? It's a difficult argument to have. Like I said, I tried them. They are super comfortable and they have very good Steam integration. So there are some pros to it.
Yeah. And it's not from Meta.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. You can. That's an argument by itself. Absolutely. Always has been. HTC and Pico and Valve, they always use this also as for positioning themselves. Of course, there's this whole the new Pico Swan device, which is kind of following suit to the Apple Vision Pro kind of thing. But I think that still has a very tricky promise what it's made for. Like you see the relatively low adoption of the Vision Pro, and I think it will fall in a similar kind of trap.
Yeah, I think the Pico is maybe the one which still tries to be the all-rounder, because there are still controllers. You're supposed to do everything with it, while the Meta one might be the ones for the couch potatoes watching movies. And maybe there will be no controllers anymore for them, only hand tracking.
The rumored new Meta ones, the super light ones? Well, we don't really know.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
When and what.
Yeah. We will probably see something at Connect. Bosworth just answered something at his usual Ask Me Anything on Instagram.
Yeah, he teased that there will be some news on the VR front. So,
but it might be that you have to pay for new controllers, for example. That would be something new. You said just that the categories are not new. There has always been glasses for certain categories or gamers or people, use cases. But I think the new thing is that Josef just tries to categorize them and give them names. I mean, there have been, of course, for people developing those glasses, they were always thinking in those categories and what do we actually want with that? No, that's clear. But to make other people understand who are not that deep into the industry that we have a shift happening here with more focused glasses, I find that interesting. And to have a bigger, like the differences might be a bit bigger. Maybe that's something what Josef meant.
I think some of it stems out of a necessity of pricing. You know, like if you're trying to make these super small, super high resolution, lightweight glasses and price them for over 2,000, what are you gonna do? You have to either say it's prosumer or enthusiast. that you just have to do that kind of because the general mainstream audience is not gonna buy it for that price. So it's almost a positioning that comes naturally with what kind of components and what kind of pricing you can go for, because not everyone has the money to build for the platform and subsidize the headsets like Meta does.
Yeah, but maybe as the industry matures more and more, this is also possible to do that. You know, like before you only had a limited set of things you could actually do with such a headset. And so they were all pretty similar. But then, okay, there were ones who have a wider field of view and some others are better with games and are the software. It's easier to couple them with Steam, and you know, like everybody had a little bit of a taste, like a specialty you could do with them. HTC was very good to integrate them in film sets and film production and stuff like that. But now they get even more specialized, and that's maybe what falls into the eyes. I find it funny that X-Real Aura and Snap Specs are actually its own category. I wouldn't count Snap Specs in there because they are absolutely no VR. Like they are only AR and not VR. The X-Real Aura is a new device because it is something like AI glasses from the form factor, but at the same time, you can make them almost like VR glasses. They are capable to do that from the CPU and stuff like that. But then they are probably the newest thing we see here.
Yeah, we've discussed both before. They're completely different kind of glasses, of course, the X-Real Aura and the Specs. Specs being true AR, very similar in what experience they give you to like the traditional, like the HoloLens and glasses like that. Coming with all the ups and downs of it, you know, like with the not being able to render black really and so on. And then the X-Real Aura trying to give you like this immersive mode because they get very dark and it can still render through the bird bath a relatively good field of view. But then again, it doesn't feel as immersive if your peripheral vision is completely open. Similar to the Quest Pro was, you know, you had this optional thing, flaps like for the side, which you I think don't have at the X-Real Aura, but it looks a little bit like it still works for VR, I think, and the 6 DOF are very stable for the X-Real Aura. But I felt like I had to raise my arms quite a bit, so I have good tracking. So that felt a little bit like old school VR, and then the field of view was relatively small for VR, and you have this like triple vision in the center. You have your rendered VR, then you have somewhat of a black surrounding, and then you have your peripheral vision open, and that I just feel it doesn't give you the same immersion as real VR.
Yeah. Well, what do we do with this theory? It's not completely wrong. It's nothing completely new. I'm not sure if the all-rounder glasses will die out, will disappear. I think there are still like headsets from Pico and HTC and Meta, which are the all-rounder glasses, and they will stay here for a while, I guess. But it's interesting to see that the categories get better in itself. Maybe that's interesting to see.
In my point of view, the argument works the other way around. People have been claiming for the last 10 years that these will converge faster, that you will not have dedicated AR and VR glasses and so on. And they converge more into one general XR glasses. And the current development or more confirms that we're not quite there yet. We still have a distance to go in optimizing VR, while we're already much lighter than years ago, and we still have quite a long distance to optimize AR. So while we have some glasses that can somewhat do both media, I think that will stay for quite a while, that we have specific glasses for specific use cases. Right.
All right. I think we should move on to the next topic, which is Meta, with a couple of news. The most intriguing one from my perspective was that Meta is toying with smart glasses recording everything and they call it supersensing glasses. What do they mean? New York Times reported that Meta is playing around with some prototypes, which Meta always does. Every company building those headsets do that. And they were tinkering or thinking about having these super sensing glasses, which means they are on record mode all the time. And the audio will be recorded all the time. And then every couple of minutes, the glasses will take a picture. And at the end, you can find your keys. That's the most guided thing. Seems to be very useful. A lot of people seem to lose their keys. Or just ask what you did a couple of hours ago or what happened there or something like that. The most critical part about that is not only that Meta is doing a big collection here, like Microsoft did it with the Windows. It's a feature which also recorded what you were doing. You remember that maybe, and that backfired very heavily. But they also were thinking about not to activate the indicator light on the glasses, but to just let it run, which I wonder why you should do that. I'm not sure if this is a battery thing. It's just something like, okay, so that nobody sees that you're having activated that feature.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a mixed bag. On the one hand, we all know that's what they always wanted to do, right? There's no kind of secret around it. Collect as much data as you can. Then the LED indicator, I mean, what's its purpose if it's always on? But on the other hand, if it's always on, then it will have a very hard time establishing itself, even more than with the LED indicating recording. In theory, all of this, most of it is also possible with your smartphone, but there are also some checks and balances, like our apps actually doing it, and companies and organizations watching this, and regulation. We do have regulation in Europe that's much stronger than in the US in terms of, just recording public places, for example, there's stronger rights in Europe than in the US. Also protecting children and from being recorded. You can't do it without the allowance of the parents. On the other hand, just having the regulation doesn't change anything if you don't actually act on it. If they actually decide on rolling this out, and we've already heard about facial tracking somewhat rolling out, it's not going to help Meta, I think, to have good publicity and good news around these headsets if they decide to do this earlier rather than later. But of course, they're trying for it because that's their business model. And the big question is that I have is like, once you turn that on, I can see Meta not even making the data really accessible to the user. So it suddenly doesn't start this always on. It's only specific in specific use casing helping the user, but it's helping more the company trying to make sense of the world and record everything and try to understand context. I think the best use cases that have been shown still go back to this always on kind of thing, like finding your keys, having a conversation transcripted and so on. Of course, it's more comfortable if you don't have to proactively say, okay, let's record this in case I will lose my keys. It's kind of pointless, the use case. I can see if you would do something like this really privacy first, it's difficult to implement, but it would serve its purpose, right? And you can save, deduct relevant information from that continuous stream and discard the continuous stream right away. Basically, set a marker when key losing activity is recognized, right? Or so you save that as an abstract data. And we have other glasses that kind of propose that, like for example, the even realistic we get to later. They say they're kind of minimal, they don't have cameras, and so they purposely try to contrast them. But then again, you also record the audio continuously. Then they say you need internet connection all the time. They say they don't save the audio, but how do you process it if you don't save it? So what they mean is they save it just for a little bit, then they process it, then they discard it and only give you the transcribed.
They stream audio. It the other way around.
Yeah, but still, it's a very similar thing. From a technological point of view, it's a very similar thing to what Meta suggests. Besides, you still activating it, right? But still, an audio stream is being transcoded. You need the audio stream, right?
Yeah. Of course.
So it's this ongoing conflict between how do you collect data, what data do you need to make any kind of sensible use case. But like I said, I don't think it's going to help Meta to push on this kind of front right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two thoughts I have with this, which is one, by the way, the Windows 11 feature is called Recall, and you can only access this with a so-called Copilot Plus PC, which I have, and I activated that for half a year or so and tried to find out if this recall feature is actually usable for anything. And I had all the data there and I checked them out and I tried to find something, but to be honest, it was useless. I have had no idea what to look for. I tried to give some questions like analytics, like how much time did I spend with emails? It couldn't answer this question. And I have to say, I would challenge that narrative that these kind of features actually are useful for something. If you have no brain, you need something like that. But the brain is a miracle because it helps you to focus on things which might be important for you. So it's also an important filter, and just having a bunch of data there really doesn't help at all. I don't know if the recall feature
you just described exactly the limitation your brain has, which is an advantage. It filters out, and this would be the way to work around that filter and recall things that you missed because of the filters, because of the biases you have, because of the lacking memory you have, and so on. Of course, it's also a social thing. Imagine how many discussions did you have with friends and family where you say, okay, if we just recorded 5 minutes ago, I could have the evidence that I actually said this or that. It would be a great podcast. Once we have these technologies, that will change how we interact with each other, right? Yeah,
but I'm not sure if this is actually a good thing, because maybe Windows or Microsoft just did the recall feature very badly. So this is why I find it very unuseful or useless. But maybe that's just how it is. If you have a bunch of data and even an AI cannot do things with it because it's not very good in analyzing that, but At the same time, I'm talking about this using the new Pro feature in Google Health, and I'm enjoying very much getting advice about my health, like what I eat, that I eat too much fat, that I eat not enough, and also not often enough, which I found very interesting. So it seems that maybe Microsoft just did a bad job here, while Google with Google Health is doing a great job. I'm putting all my data in there right now to find out, okay, how am I? Am I fine? What's my health? And I find that very interesting. So at the same time, I have to contradict even myself with that. But yeah, the second point I wanted to make is, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this? New York Times is reporting about it. New York Times maybe also got the information from Meta or from somebody leaking that information because Meta wants us speaking about it. For me, this story seems like something where Meta tries to once again widen what we think, what is possible, and make
so you
it
think
possible
it's a leak to test the waters? I'm not sure.
Could be,
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they tried different things. They discover that it's really hard to do those features, and I think rightly so, because we live in a world where we actually are concerned about our data and our security and safety. Yeah, they just try to widen what is possible with those things. And I think it works because that's how you do it. You flood the zone with shit. You have a lot of ideas, and somewhere you have no idea what is actually makes sense and what not. I think the biggest problem is that the users aren't really in control.
I mean, on the other hand, you have these news that Meta tries to make the LED, tinker proof. I don't know how much of that is really reality.
We're going to the next news here.
Yeah. If you want to, you can always make it work. But again, I think if you make it hard enough, a lot less people will do it. So if you just, if you at least recognize that someone puts a sticker on it or cuts the wire, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So you're talking about a news that Meta says we're going to update our smart glasses to make camera defunct when somebody toyed with the LED. There are services right now where you can just send your glasses in, and then they will professionally take care that your LED won't light up when you do a recording, but you can still record. There are also tutorials on YouTube how to do that by yourself. I watch them. They are not easy. You need an UV light. You need some special tools. And you need to actually not scratch your glasses while doing that. It is possible for somebody with Geschick.
Enough skill. Yeah.
The funny thing is, the feature that they detect that the LED was tinkered with, or it is somebody is on the LED, is actually a feature which was implemented in the very first Meta Ray-Ban Gen 1, which I wear on my nose right now. And then I even had the problem that feature was so sensitive that when I put the cap too deep into my face, it said, oh, the LED is covered, we cannot record. That worked. That was an already working feature back in the days 2.5 years ago. And I was telling everybody that this is a feature until somebody told me, yeah, but people still do it. People still hold their hands in front of the LED. Then I tested it and I thought, okay, they changed it. They pulled it out of the code, and maybe because of reasons, which is we want more data to train our AI, so we cannot miss all those data which would have been otherwise recorded. They removed it, and now they're removing it back in because they see, okay, this is actually a problem. People do not even wear and buy these glasses anymore because of privacy concerns. Yeah, it's funny, but it's not. Yeah, we have to see how it works. At the same time, they're discussing to deactivate the LED for certain functions. So we have different signals here, which we have to somehow understand. Another thing we have to talk about is Meta AI, or Meta playing around with a paywall for AI functions, which also made the round, which is a funny thing because they can be happy that somebody will use the AI at all. There are numbers out there which show that almost nobody of their billions of people are actually interested in using Meta AI or Meta Spark. Okay, if only 0.1% of those 3 billion people use it, it's still a lot of people, right? But of course, it's not enough for Meta. So right now they are planning to do a Meta One Premium abo. And this one includes not only WhatsApp Plus and Instagram Plus and other premium features you can get through whole the Meta suite, but also the focus mode, which is an interesting feature for the Meta Ray-Ban and other AI glasses from Meta, which is, if you activate it, the voice of the guy you're talking to gets enhanced. That's a very useful feature, to be honest, but now is being covered behind a paywall. That's at least what they are thinking about. Right, so far the news. The features actually does work without internet connection. So it's actually not an AI function which is that much of a problem for any server which needs to be paid at all. So they're trying a subscription model on something which actually doesn't need any subscription model or heavy computing power. I mean, you can put everything into those subscription premium models, but I'm actually not sure if this makes any sense and this will be of any success. There are also other possibilities for you to already pay Meta for stuff and see less ads and have more features on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, and so on. But also almost nobody is actually using those subscriptions. So, okay, it's not bad if you have 3 billion people and then you have also a couple of million more. Fine. Okay, it will still exceed the cost, but that's not the business model. And Meta is, of course, eyeing for, I'm pretty sure. So
I think they're all trying to see how can they make money from all of what they spend on AI. So it's more, I think, kind of on the one hand probing the general audience if they're willing to pay for something like that and how much they're willing to pay, then making huge amounts of money right away from it. But eventually they need to make money on it. Just like we see with other LLMs moving further and further away from subscription now because the token costs are too high. And here we're like moving from completely free to subscription based. And so, well, we'll see where this goes. But the more you push for AI on these glasses, the more you also have to think as a platform owner, what is running on the glasses, in the future, you want to have more things run on the edge or on the glasses, not everything being dependent on the cloud, of course.
But to be honest, for me, that sounds again something Meta is testing. Like they're communicating it to test, okay, are people willing to pay for that? We're gonna talk about this more often. We will put more features into Meta AI, which are paid. Get used to it. And they probably do it with something which is actually not that much used. So nobody cares, but they still have heard about it. And by the way, in Germany, that feature isn't even there. So it doesn't matter at us at all in Germany. And it probably also will never come here. And the funny thing about that is also that I would suggest never to use Meta AI at all, because you cannot activate it without saying that I don't want that Meta uses my data for training the AI. And that's a big problem. So you would pay here to use a feature where you cannot opt out that Meta uses the data to train AI with it. So you pay Meta to use your data to train AI.
I mean, that's the case for many AI services, to be fair, that either they opt in automatically or you don't have controls at all. I'm again for user control as much as you can. I mean, we've seen them Meta push it into WhatsApp earlier. We've seen them that was like 2 years ago, announced those AI characters that you can talk to in WhatsApp. Now, even that use case, just as an example, that use case of anthropomorphizing AI is becoming regulated in China, for example. You're not supposed to have AI driven as a character or someone who you can talk to like a friend, unless it's clearly embedded into a learning environment or something like that, or a support environment. So this is all moving at fast paces. I think many different angles pulling and pushing from different sides, be it the monetization, be it the energy use, be it the regulation. So that's the fascinating part about this developing field and how these companies are positioning themselves. And another interesting, to move on with the next topic,
let me say one thing to those news about Meta doing things with AI and with money and testing your data things and so on. If we want to understand what Meta doing here, always think about, are they testing something? Are they trying something out and try to find out what you think about it? And I'm on LinkedIn all of the times and see how people go completely bonkers, and most of the times they don't even get the facts right. But to be honest, they feel the right thing. They feel irritated, they react negatively, and that's a good thing. So keep posting these shit posts, please, on LinkedIn. Although they are wrong most of the times about what AI glasses are or what they can do. But I guess this is what we have to do right now. Like, show them you cannot do everything. We react to it. And that seems to be the game of the hour right now, of the day.
Don't forget that like over 40% of LinkedIn is already AI generated. So
and is read by AI.
That shows you it's generated, but it might be a bot social network soon anyway. So we'll have to see if we can still, like, how much there will still be people talking on LinkedIn at all, that's a topic by itself.
You can still write me on LinkedIn, guys, and I will react as a human without help of AI.
Okay, I think there's so much cool stuff you can do with AI. So I'm not anti-AI because you just said that. I'll completely answer you without AI. It's more about the control and the ethics. But about that topic, what's Illinois doing?
Illinois is one of the first states of the USA which are actually banning smart glasses, not in general, but for drivers of cars. They have a regulatory going on which says, okay, all smart glasses will be banned for drivers. And the not so funny part is that they do not even care about what kind of smart glasses we are talking about here. So there's no clear definition of what it actually is. It means probably the display glasses. It means glasses without displays. It doesn't matter. And the not so funny part about this news is that some think that this might be a trick to be something the police can use. So in the US, the police has a little bit more power and is pretty mighty. And if they see somebody with glasses in their faces, they now have easy reason to just pull them over and say, okay, we need to check if these are smart glasses. And in Germany, we have 60% of people who need glasses. I don't know the numbers in the US, but probably similar or even more. And which is another bad sign that technology gets misused for those purposes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's also somewhat misunderstood. On the other hand, it's understandable because it's not really regulated what happens on those glasses. See, if interestingly, it's also for smart glasses without displays. But imagine the displays doing all kinds of funky stuff while you're driving. Even like the HUDs in cars, they go through like heavy testing and UX engineering to distract you as little as possible and be as helpful as possible. Even that is in your way sometimes a little bit, like my car has one of those HUDs that's on your windshield, and most of the times it's kind of helpful. On the other times, your brain starts to ignoring it, like an eye floater, like you don't see it anymore. And
like the dead flies on the windshield.
similar to that. But if smart glasses now start introducing a lot of animation or flickering in the peripheral vision, which most of them can't do right now, but imagine all kinds of scenarios that can, of course, be dangerous for traffic. So I can see the argument, but it's just not really thought through, and it also limits people who want to wear these glasses in the future all day. If they can't even drive a car with it, they need. Some people have a second pair of glasses anyway for driving their car. Yeah. But it's something to be considered. And then in the US, a lot of those things, privacy and so on, are different from state to state, which also makes it complicated. But I think this is it's just one of those developments that is happening right now, and then they will eventually consolidate across a bigger consent on country basis or on even
state
global basis eventually. But it's interesting that regulators feel the need to introduce that as a law already, even though we only have about 10 million of those glasses sold globally.
But it's also we have a discussion here in Germany and in the EU about child pornography and stuff like that. And it gets misused so often to just have rules to watch over people and to grab data and to intrude into our privacy. And of course, this is a good reason to have regulatory and to fight, and we have to fight against that, no doubt about that. And also, if we have new technology, we have to find out, okay, how dangerous is it actually for drivers to get notifications and be distracted and stuff like that, or watch movies. But if we don't have the situation that there's already a big problem here. It's a little bit unusual that we have the regulatory before something actually happened. And at the same time, cars like Teslas are still driving around US.
I mean, it's always it's easier to see those, like we do also right now in the podcast, to see the dangers. Of course, that's always easier to point out and see than all the opportunities, because the opportunities need much more definition to make them understandable with new technologies, and the dangers are much more broadly applied, rightfully so, right? It can potentially cause a lot of harm to do these things wrongly. The positive sides usually take a lot more explanation, so you agree to them, right? So it's just, I think, an interesting thing. We look at these things differently sometimes, Thomas. I'm not a fan of forbidding everything right away, and give it an opportunity, but I'm for doing it with a conscience and a clear intention of ethics when you implement stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, one sign that they didn't do it with a clear intention towards security, in my opinion, is that they also included glasses without display. And it's more about, okay, we try to do something here, but the original reason is so that police can pull you over more easily.
Yeah, I don't know. You keep saying that. I don't know if that's the reason. Maybe some people are just scared of the technology. I wouldn't follow that narrative right away, that they just want to be able to pull over more people. Could be, but I think it's just people being scared of the potential risks.
Yeah. It's, of course, an ongoing story, and the bill wasn't signed yet. The governor of Illinois has time until the end of August. We will check that out later and continue to the next interesting topic, which is even realities. We haven't talked about them, I think, at all at this podcast. Maybe just mention the name that they exist. but they're getting more and more interesting. Why? They're doing something different to, for example, Meta, Ray-Ban, and all the other smart glasses which have cameras. They have no cameras, but they have displays on each eye in a beautiful green, old-fashioned style. You can see green text in your site, and that's very interesting. Why are we talking about them? Because they reached the unicorn status. They received another pre-B financing round of about $150 million from Meituan and Tencent, and are now have now a valuation of over $1 billion. And that's, of course, a milestone. And to be honest, everybody looking at smart glasses, there are over 70 different models right now. I do not know all models, but I do know, of course, even realities, because they are doing something interesting. They're recognizable. They seem to deliver great quality and a nice product. I have heard that the early versions were a little bit buggy with the software. Now we are with the G2 model, the flagship model from Even Realities. They even have a ring which you can use for micro interactions and navigation and stuff like that. So very interesting development here.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, they're going from a 9 million funding to 150 million on top to develop further glasses, to the marketing and so on. They're trying to differentiate by not having the cameras, and that might be a very good thing. On the other hand, they still have that input, right? They more or less continuous input with the microphone. So still a lot of the issues that we have with the other glasses still apply on the audio level. But by limiting this to audio, of course, it's much easier to gain trust by a lot of people compared to having cameras in your glasses. So also they're even lighter that way. I'm still a bit hesitant generally with all those glasses that just put like a fixed screen in front of your eyes. I think it can be pretty annoying and irritating. Similar to what I mentioned earlier with eye floaters, like if something is just stuck in your field of vision, it should be used sparsely to not annoy you. And if you're in a conversation, they have some text showing up. It all depends on how do you contextualize it, like how does it make sense? How is it actually helping you? How is it not? They again give you the argument of going minimalistic, which is smart to do. But they have to follow through with all of their applications to actually support this. Because if you end up in a conversation and we're talking about, let's say you just mentioned Even Realities, and the classes without any kind of triggering show me a short description of Even Realities, maybe I know that, maybe I don't need that right now, so it becomes very tricky to do the right kind of augmentation at the right time. And I think that's a key for all of the glasses, the AR glasses. When do you show what? How persistently do you show it? How long do you show? How annoying it is? How much of it does happen automatically versus you triggering it? So there's a lot of that still to be figured out, I think. So it's good that they got a lot more money to figure this out. But at least they have a clear differentiation on the market. On the other hand, 1 billion valuation, we all know that doesn't mean they have $1 billion. It means they have 150 million. And still on a global market, quite a challenge to compete with that. On the other hand, we have until now still relatively limited market. I think in 2025 the overall market for the smart glasses was 2.5 billion with like over 80% at Meta.
We're about 70 in the meanwhile.
Yeah, and that's
Bit lower.
still relatively low numbers for all the hype that and for all the promises that Meta bets on it. That's still relatively low. As a comparison, that's probably like 10 million devices sold altogether, not just in 1 year. And
From Meta, you mean? We do know that
from Meta, and I don't know, maybe even with the others combined, but Meta, we know that it was like 7 million up to a certain point.
Yeah. We had two numbers. We had 2 million in 1 year and then 7 million in the next year.
Yeah,
but that's already 1.5 years ago. So if they only would have sold until then another 1 million, and now we would be at 10 million, that would be an absolute disaster. So even
that's
if you
why
do
I'm
it
saying I don't
conservatively,
know other numbers. That's why I'm saying we did probably they were probably 10 million sold plus. We don't know exactly how much more, but that's about what we can assume without speculating too much. And compare that with, for example, smartwatches. Apple Watch now, which is also a very it's not like everyone has Apple Watches, but they crossed 100 billion revenue from those glasses last year, I think. And that still meant in the first year they sold the Apple Watch, I think it was around 10 million they sold. Second year 20 million or 22 million or something like that. So of course Meta is hoping for that increase, and I'm looking very forward to see the numbers. Are we gonna be stuck at like 5 million a year? Does it go down, or does it really go up like they want it to?
Just some comparison, I just Googled it. Analysts assume that the Apple Watch have been sold 33 to 35 million years in 2025.
Years? What do you mean? Units? Or
units, yeah. Devices. What did I say? Years?
Years. You said years.
It's like, that's a little bit long.
Well, there was this number, I think 100 billion they sold in an amount of 100 billion. So
that's still not that much more than 10 million devices, in 2 years or so. Well, they sold like 50 million a year at peak, and that was like 20% or 23% they're at right now from the market. And own the watch market with that?
They can claim for some years the most sold watch, but they don't own the whole majority of the market. Like I said, I think currently it's like 23%. It's just as a comparison, right? So it all depends with the smart glass. It all depends. Now, does it go up like they want, or does it like stagnate around those 5 to 10 million per year? And that will make or break quite a lot of this industry.
Yeah. Interesting to know about the Even Realities glasses. There are two different models. There's that ring. We have a developer community there, and even a platform where you can put up apps. So there's actually happening something. So developer develops stuff there, try something out, which is a good thing that this is possible. Very important for the company, I guess, too. And also good to know, if you order the G2 one, that's the actual flagship, with some description glasses and the ring, you will pay over 1,100 euro. So it's not a cheap device. And I guess this also says a little bit about what we are talking here about. It's a very specialized device for people who want to try out this technology, and we cannot expect to sell that in the millions, I'm pretty sure. Although getting more and more interesting. So we're going to talk about Even Realities in the future more often, I'm pretty sure, because company majors and they have a lot of money they can actually put into works. So let's see what's happening with Even Realities. Let's move on to the Metaverse browser. Every time I hear a Metaverse browser, I feel like 10 years back in time, jump 10 years back in time. But of course, we have been talking about that a little bit already on this podcast. In episode 125, we had Sean Mann here, and we're talking about the Open Metaverse Browser Initiative. You should actually listen to that episode if you want to understand what's actually going on there. But there are news now, because back then there haven't been any browser announced yet. Now they announced a browser at AWE this year, and the browser is called Artemis, and it's powered by Sneeze, which is the engine developed by the Open Metaverse Browser Initiative. Thomas, what's behind that Artemis? What is a metaverse browser anyway?
Well, they try to think about what does the metaverse differentiate to the web, and how do we have to build a engine for a browser that purposely targets users wanting to use the metaverse rather than the web. Of course, as the story goes, during that hype, most of the metaverse was actually done in a regular browser and some in VR headsets, right? Mm-hmm. So browsers can render 3D and so on. The idea behind the Sneeze engine and the metaverse browser is that you kind of re-engineer or refocus on how would you build this kind of browser environment for spatial computing. Mm-hmm. And that's why they call the equivalent to websites, they call spatial fabric. It's a little bit of a clumsy term in terms of the general audience, but it is pretty descriptive. The spatial fabric meaning, the stuff that makes up the content in kind of your spatial surrounding. So that's like a website. And then you have some of the same, but some added protocols to make things more real time. And you have the idea of proximity in the browser. So rather than entering a URL and you going to a certain website, the browser would recognize that you're close to a store and give you the spatial fabric of that store that's running on a metaverse server, basically also self-hosted or whatever, meaning all the idea behind this is also like an open stack comparable to the web rather than a closed ecosystem similar to what Meta did running on the Quest. So that's the idea behind it. Like labeling it the metaverse browser, I'm not sure if they're really hitting it in 2026, but the idea and the technology behind it makes a lot of sense. And it is in theory possible for any other browser developer to just take that Sneeze engine and also implement it in part of your browser. So Artemis is just the first one to kind of follow through with those specifications and actually implement it. Will we see users downloading Artemis and using Artemis? Of course not, if there's no content specifically made for this kind of architecture. So it all depends on each other, but it's, I think, in terms of standardization and making something more specific for the spatial web, it has a lot of aspects that make sense, I would say.
I guess the fabric term is have been chosen because it's not just one blank page you can fill, but it's actually woven with different inputs. So there's not one source, but you can put in source from different parts of the internet. And so it gets woven to a fabric, and then this is some kind of the idea. So the problem with the metaverse was a little bit, okay, how do I put my avatar in there? And so the website needs to be able to accept external input, and that's more or less the idea of that fabric term. But you're right, it's not easy understandable, and it's not an easy metaphor. Then I can serve a website, like a page or something like that.
Which is also a term that has just been established over the years.
Yes,
when it first came out, it was also not clear to most people what a website is. On the other hand, it had site, like a location you go to in the web, so spatial fabric, I think, makes it it is descriptive, but it's a bit tricky to understand for a general audience. But the whole idea of the web and of the metaverse browser is to have interchangeable and interoperative stuff. Like that was always true for the web as well. Actually, a lot of developments have taken stuff back, like cross-domain functionality being blocked and stuff like that. That wasn't in the original design of the web, right? The original design was even more interconnected.
And I think, as you said, you do not need a URL to go there. You can just walk there, and then it gets opened.
Yeah, I think there's still you still have addresses as well, but the proximity is like a new kind of idea introduced to it.
Also interesting to know is it's not just something like Chrome, which I can download on my PC or my smartphone and use it, I guess. It's something which is built for augmented reality and for smart glasses and AR glasses. So it's actually not meant to be used on a normal PC, as far as I understand it.
No, I think I don't think that's correct. Yes, it makes more sense on devices that can move around already from the point of proximity, right? But it is available for regular operating system like Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, MetaQuest.
Really? Okay. So I could download it right now and try to find some kind of fabric and
that's
go
the
there.
tricky thing. Find the fabric.
Is there already a DNS thingy happening, or something like a page where I can find all the fabric addresses?
I don't know.
We don't know yet, right?
No, I don't know. There's probably some kind of idea behind it, but I honestly don't know.
We should do that. So we were the first. We make something like, we call it not Googles, but goggles. That also fits to the, okay. Maybe something like that. But that's also very interesting. I do not need to go there, but I could join the fabric from where I am right now when I know the URL, the address.
Actually, I just opened the website. The funny thing is actually the desktop versions are available already, and the device, like the HMD versions, are coming soon. So they're not available yet.
Yeah, because I think the headset developers have to integrate them. Else they will not work.
I think you can run it as an app on those devices, right? But just like a browser. But it was probably maybe easier to release for the desktop operating systems.
All right. But now there is something like a metaverse browser based on that idea we just described, powered by Sneeze. And this is, of course, something interesting. Time will tell us if this works or how it develops. So we will also put an eye on it and cover it from time to time when there is news about it. If you want to check it out, do it, please, because I find it still very interesting, the concept of the metaverse and doing something which is more aware of location, where are avatars walking around. I like that idea very much. So please check out our link in the show notes and download the metaverse browser. You can do that. And as we come to the end of the episode, we want to talk about something which is, what is it actually? Are robots part of an augmented reality because they are computing things? Are they spatial computing in some way? Are they ubiquitous computing? What are they? There's a new robot we have to talk about because it's just funny. There are new robots coming to the market every week almost, which are very impressive. But this one is also very impressive because it's a companion robot. One of the, I guess first robots of its kind. There have been some kind of companion puppets for people who like something like that. But this one is as automated as it can actually be in these times. What are we talking about? UBTECH, well-known Chinese robot company who produce robots mainly for the industry and mainly focusing on hardware, not so much on the software, to be honest, released the UWorld U1 Humano Home Companionship robot, which is called U1 Lite. There are different versions of it. 3 different versions: the U1 Lite Semi-Torso Edition, the U1 Pro Full Body Model, and the tighten your seatbelts, 1 U1 Ultra full body model, and they cost between $17,600 and $145,500. Did you already order one, Thomas?
No, and I won't. I mean, I really wonder how this goes along with. I'm not a super kind of China expert, so I don't know how far these new regulation laws are on companion AI that I've read about. But how does this work together? You know, on the one hand, you say you're regulating AI companions that have a risk of emotional dependency and psychological harm and stuff like that. On the other hand, you say you're now building companion robots for people that are lonely or whatever. It's exactly the same thing.
Especially if you know how it works. We need to talk about also what the features are. If you buy the ones with the full body model, they can actually walk around. And additionally, they can sit or lay down or just stand around and talk to you. And I guess the extraordinary thing is that it has 88 bionic joints and multi-dimensional flexible electronic skin. So you see a lot of action in their faces. The videos are really interesting. So you need to check out the videos of those robots because their faces are doing some kind of sports. They can do more than 300 composite micro expressions across 4 categories: human-like neck movement and posture retention. And they can recognize 20 emotional states and react to it with an accuracy of above 90%. And they work with a large language model. So you talk to them, and then they need a millisecond to react and deliver an answer through their mouth. Their face start moving, and they say, "Oh, that is very interesting. I'm so sorry that you're not feeling good today." Something like that. And that's what they actually do. And that's everything they do. They hear. They talk to you, they recognize you, they can recognize your emotional state when they are part of those 20 emotional recognizable and talk to you. Which is a cool thing. It's like C3PO, right? Everybody likes C3PO.
C3PO was a translation robot, right? So
a protocol robot, yeah.
I don't know. Of course you can try to build something like that. Of course, humans would try to build something like that, obviously. Is it on a level that's actually usable right now? I would say in the same way that LLMs kind of persuade you that they have some kind of long-term memory and some kind of actual understanding of your emotional state, but just imitating that understanding doesn't give you that understanding. So it is easy for humans to fall into the trap of relying on that emotional connection that's in the end one-sided, right? So you have this emotional connection, you have this dependency. And also what I notice is in 99.9% of the cases, these robots are female and targeting a male audience.
Yeah.
Similar to all of the other tech that we've covered today, right? Almost all of the glasses are shown on male faces, for example, and are bigger frames targeting mostly male audience. Because we know from other technology, male audiences are earlier adopters in these kind of things. That's probably the core reason behind it. But there's always a little bit of this creepy factor with it as well, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what sounds funny in the first place, but of course also serious, is like male buying that for more kind of a romantic intention about that. These puppets you had there, the puppet companions were usually ones with very extreme body features. And these ones now can move, which is creepy as hell. But I can see that there's a target group for that. And let's say it this way, if you use this target group to finance your development, I can see the strategy there.
It's a strange argument. But I think there's still a long way to go in terms of the facial expressions anyway. That you want to like surrender to this disillusion. Yes, a lot of people probably want to, and I don't know what more to say to it. I think it's not working as well as it's portrayed, and there are inherent problems with it.
Many problems, of course. Yeah, we need to talk. We would have to talk about man being alone all the time, which is a big problem through all societies. Without any doubt, this doesn't help at all. Not being lonely, of course. Then all the stuff like you do not even have to go outside to have sex anymore. You just order some puppet, some robot to do that. So you're living more and more in a technologized world where you do not need any social contacts, but besides that, you're still unhappy. So yeah, it's nothing which helps. I would have loved to see, to be honest, that this is a robot which is built not looking like a human, like more looking like a C3PO, so that you can clearly see this is a robot, this is not a human being, and you do not need all those face movements, because the same reason why you want to know if you're talking on the phone line with a robot or not, or with anybody, also is true here. It very much helps you. Okay, this is more of a tool. It can answer questions for me. It can be here for some ping pong in your mind to say, okay, I have this problem. Do you have any suggestions? And then you just have a suggestion, which is also something like the voice assistants we already have, but without a body. Now it has a body. And the question is, what kind of additional thing is the body what we need? You know, like the presence is the thing we need to discuss about.
If you want to, more in a academic point of view, you could argue for human-like robots also having as close as possible to human features, in a sense of intelligence needs embodiment. You could argue for that and experiment with it, and I think that's an interesting space to explore. It doesn't seem to me like this is what this product is meant for, but it would be interesting to research if just like a world understanding and a spatial understanding would add to large language models intelligence. But right now, no one can absolutely give you that answer, right?
Yeah.
It's also how limited is the approach of a large language model being stochastic in the end.
Yeah. And a lot of other companies are already working on that with 1X, for example, very interesting company working on that. More of a spatial understanding, which is in focus, so that it can do things with the objects in your everyday life, like doing the dishes and stuff like that. Not so much talking, more doing things. And I guess that's a little bit of the more clever strategy to go for with humanoid robots than just a talking body.
While I'll plug in this paper anyway, even though we wanted to wrap it up with this because it connects nicely. There is a paper released a week ago or so from NVIDIA and ETH Zurich and some other organizations called Motion Bricks. It's a very interesting development and pretty high quality way to animate video game characters. So basically, it has a neural model that does the in-between animation between certain poses. So you do a certain pose of climbing or walking, and then it automatically generates the animation, the three-dimensional animation of a character in between, and it's trained on 350,000 motion skills. It's real-time able. Because it only has 2 milliseconds latency. So it's a pretty cool model, worth looking at some of the animations there. It can't do every movement though, because it's still trained on a limited set of movements. And but why I'm mentioning it is also framed to be used in robotics. So you can also use that same model to not just animate a video game character, but animate a robot from pose to pose. And for animation of video games as well as robots, interaction is very important. And this model also serves interaction. You can grab interactable objects. They call it smart primitives, like a banana, a sword, a chair. And it can interact with those in a reasonable way. However, some of the problems with that is even though you might use motion bricks to trigger a certain animation, the neural model might not know about, for example, the limitations of the robot's hardware. So it wants to do a pose-to-pose flip, and the hardware can't do the flip, and then it endangers someone or something like that. So while it is applicable, it still has some disadvantages. Also, in terms of video games, 15,000 frames per second or 2 milliseconds latency sounds fantastic on a high-end GPU. But if you think about what it means for a video game, where you usually have many avatars animated, you would very quickly use your frame time. Like if you have 120 frames per second video game, you wouldn't be able to animate like the majority of characters with it. Maybe only the main character or something like that. Yeah. But it's definitely a very cool development in that area.
Yeah, very nice find. I also saw the videos and it looks really stunning and surprising, because usually you have some kind of clumsy transitions or they just stand, adjust, and then do the next thing or something like that. And this just looks as one movement, like Kung Fu almost.
Yeah. The tricky thing with those video game characters, they look more and more realistic, but in the end, almost all of them use very complex state machines for the animation. So they're taking transitions of the whole body or certain body parts or just the hands or just the face, use different blending technologies between those core animations, and a state machine drives the logic between all of those, and it gets very complicated very quickly. And a system like this would take care of that. You as a designer or engineer only give the intended movement, the intended interaction, and the style of interaction, let's say like in a funny, happy walk or something like that, and it does the animation for you. So that is a very cool idea and technology, and we'll probably see more of that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. In robotics, we see something like we have a world model which understands physics, and we have a local model, an action model on the robot, which knows the hardware. So it's just trained with the sensor data and the movement data of the robot, and they two coordinate. You have the world model who is doing the strategy, or the what do I need to do without destroying anything to reach my goal, and then it sends these orders to the action model, and then the action model is doing that, actually knowing the hardware and doing things. Very interesting stuff. If you want to go into there, read that article about the robot companion and also the study you just mentioned. Very interesting, in the show notes. And I guess with 1 hour, 27 minutes on our watch, we have to go into vacation. We won't be gone for long, but we need a little bit of vacation. And if you are around in Cologne after the vacation, you should definitely check out 3 events. The first one is Evoke. It's the weekend before Gamescom, a demo scene festival party in Cologne here. 3 days, absolutely blasting every nerd. You have to go there. Then there's, of course, the Gamescom, and there will be the regular XR get-together, once again with the EDF VR and spatial realities. So if you are at Gamescom doing anything with XR, please join us on Wednesday. We cannot tell you yet where it will be. Probably also at the business area at Gamescom. And a week after Gamescom, there will be the AI Hackathon, where I curate a track, the Contextual AI Challenge track, and we will have a couple of nice hardware stuff there. We have Snap there and somebody else I cannot talk yet about, but I will soon check out the Contextual AI Challenge track of the AI Hackathon. All right, that's it for now.
Yeah, and that was episode 133 of Spatial Realities.
It was. If you enjoyed this podcast, we'd really appreciate if you recommended it to others. Feel free to share the episodes on social medias, send them to colleagues and friends, and leave us a 5-star rating or hearts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and use the Metaverse browser for that. Also, a quick reminder about our Discord server. You can find a link to it in the show notes or at spatialrealities.de.
My name is Thomas Bedenk.
I'm Thomas Riedel.
Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.
See you.
Bye.